The scramble for Africa and the Berlin Conference in the late 19th century, European powers launched a fierce race for African territory, a period known as the Scramble for Africa. By 1880, only 10% of Africa was under formal European control. By 1900, nearly 90% of the continent had been carved up and claimed. But this land grab wasn't driven by African realities, it was dictated by European interests. In 1884–85, European leaders convened in Berlin for a conference to settle disputes over colonial claims. No African leaders were invited. Not a single representative of the continent was consulted. Using maps and military reports, diplomats drew borders with straight lines and geometric precision, often ignoring tribal boundaries, historical kingdoms, or natural features like rivers and mountains. One famous example is the straight border between Egypt and Sudan, drawn along the 22nd parallel north. By the end of the conference, over 50 countries or territories had been invented by pen strokes. Empires such as Britain, France, Germany, Belgium, and Portugal got the lion's share. The results were artificial nations, collections of tribes and ethnic groups forced into single political units. The cost of colonial borders didn't vanish after independence. They were inherited by newly formed African states. To avoid redrawing the map and triggering wars, the Organization of African Unity, now the African Union, agreed in 1964 to preserve existing borders. This decision avoided some immediate chaos, but sowed the seeds of long-term instability. Many African countries remain deeply divided along ethnic and tribal lines, often with one group dominating others. Let's look at a few powerful examples. Nigeria. With over 250 ethnic groups, Nigeria was a British creation. The north was predominantly Muslim and Hausa Fulani. The south was mainly Christian and divided between Yoruba and Igbo people. These divisions led to the Biafran War, 1967–1970, which killed over 1 million people. Sudan and South Sudan. The North-South divide in Sudan is stark: Arab-Muslim North versus Black Christian and animist South. After decades of civil war, South Sudan became independent in 2011. But even then, tribal conflict flared in the new nation. Rwanda. Belgium's colonial policies created and hardened divisions between Hutus and Tutsis, leading to the 1994 genocide in which an estimated 800,000 people were murdered in 100 days. The Sahel region. Artificial borders cut across nomadic trade routes and grazing lands, fueling insurgencies from Mali to Niger to Burkina Faso. Colonial borders didn't just create bad neighbors. They often divided the same people into different countries. The Yu people are split between Ghana and Togo. The Tuareg are scattered across Mali, Niger, Libya, and Algeria. Post-independence challenges. When African nations gained independence in the mid-20th century, they inherited state structures designed to extract resources, not govern equitably. Weak institutions, economic dependency, and factional politics often followed. The Organization of African Unity's decision to keep colonial borders, while pragmatic, trapped African countries in configurations not chosen by their people. This led to military coups as rival factions fought for state control. Civil wars when marginalized groups demanded autonomy. Secessionist movements like Biafra, Nigeria, Somaliland, Somalia, and Casamance, Senegal. Even peaceful countries struggled with border problems. Kenya and Tanzania, both stable democracies, have had periodic disputes over water use and land rights in Maasai regions. Governments that reflect only one ethnic group often breed resentment. In Ethiopia, the centralized rule by Amhara elites alienated Tigrayans, leading to the recent Tigray War. In Cameroon, Francophone dominance has triggered Anglophone resistance. These aren't just internal matters. Often, they spill across borders and draw in neighbors, creating regional instability. Quick pause. We'd love to hear from you. Do you think Africa's colonial borders should be redrawn? Or should nations learn to work within these inherited lines? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every one. Now, back to the story. The modern impacts of colonial borders. Today's map of Africa still reflects decisions made in European capitals over 100 years ago. These borders continue to affect 1. Security. Border disputes between countries remain unresolved, like Ethiopia and Eritrea's conflict over Badme, or Morocco's claim to Western Sahara. Terrorism and insurgency thrive in border zones. Boko Haram operates between Nigeria, Niger, and Cameroon. Al-Shabaab crosses Kenya-Somalia borders with ease. Piracy and smuggling thrive in areas where state control is weak, like the Gulf of Guinea or the Sahel. 2. Economy and trade. Africa trades more with outside powers than with itself. Only 17% of African trade is intracontinental, compared to 60% in Europe. Border red tape, tariffs, and incompatible infrastructure hold back growth. Trucks often wait days to cross borders. Colonial economies were built to export raw materials to Europe, not foster regional integration. 3. Migration and identity. African borders don't reflect the lived realities of people. Family ties, linguistic zones, and religious affiliations span countries. Migrants are often treated as foreigners, even in neighboring states, fueling xenophobia. Stateless populations, like the Banyarwanda in Tanzania or the Nubians in Kenya, suffer legal discrimination. Pan-Africanism and regional unity. Despite these challenges, many African leaders and thinkers have worked to overcome colonial divisions. Pan-Africanism, the idea of a united Africa, has deep roots, from Kwame Nkrumah's dreams to the founding of the African Union. Regional integration is growing. The African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, aims to create a single market for goods and services. Regional blocs like ECOWAS, West Africa, and SADC, Southern Africa, promote peace, mobility, and economic ties. Infrastructure projects like the African Union's Agenda 2063 plan new railways, roads, and power grids to connect countries. Cultural unity is also rising. African music, film, and fashion transcend borders. From Afrobeats to Nollywood, a Pan-African identity is emerging. Youth across the continent are more connected than ever via smartphones and social media. But challenges remain. National interests often clash with regional goals. Elite corruption and poor governance hinder progress. External powers still manipulate divisions for economic and strategic gain. Chapter 6: What the world needs to understand. To outsiders, Africa's problems are often blamed on tribalism or dysfunction. But many of these issues are the legacy of an imposed geography. Fixing borders may not be practical, or even desirable. But recognizing their impact is essential for creating fairer, more inclusive systems. Foreign policy, aid, and investment should consider supporting regional integration and cross-border cooperation, encouraging federalism and decentralization where appropriate, avoiding alliances that reinforce ethnic domination. Africa isn't broken. It's resilient. But the chains of history are heavy. Understanding colonial borders isn't just about the past, it's about unlocking a better future. If this video gave you a new perspective on Africa's borders, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. We break down the history and geography behind global power every week. Share this with someone who thinks maps don't matter. And let us know in the comments, which African country's story should we explore next?